Morning, afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our third quarterly webinar of the year. My name is Jay McClelland. I am the Technical Manager for Innova, and joining me on the webinar today, we've got Bruce Ripley, who's our COO. We've got Jen Gillen, who is our Sales and Marketing Manager, and we've got Phil Dunn, who is our Engineering Manager. So today I'm going to run through the features that we have added and upgraded over the last quarter. Some of this is going to be live within the platform itself. Some of it's going to be via PowerPoint. I will, at the end, there's going to be a Q&A session. So please, during this, if you do have any questions, there is a Q&A section at the top of your screen. If you click on it and put any questions in, we'll do my best to answer them at the end. If for any reason I don't get through all the questions, I will get back to you after the fact directly, so don't worry about that. This will be recorded as well, so the recording will be available probably within the next 24 hours. So if you do miss anything, you will be able to pick it up later on. So most of what we have done in the last quarter has been on the Innova Vantage platform. So I'd like to start off by taking a look at our drill string page rewrite. So let's close this here. So the drill string can be accessed from several different places, but for the purposes of this, I'm going to access it from our operations tab, and down the bottom of the well in question, I'm going to select BHA. That's going to take me to my drill string section underneath the well views for the well in question. So for those of you that are familiar with Vantage and you've been using the drill string previously, you will see that this is a complete rewrite. So this has been brought in line with our dashboard, so very similar feel in terms of the layout and everything like that. So we can specify the number of cards. We've got a card for each of our BHAs. We've got some nice quick filters along the top. And what you're looking at here is our grid view, but we also have, our dashboard view. We also have a grid view. Now this is very similar to what it was like before, but most of the functionality is available within the dashboard. So that's what I'm going to focus on at the moment. So up the top here, it's very quick and easy to add a new BHA. We can import BHAs from anywhere in our server database. We can duplicate a BHA from the card itself, and we can delete your BHAs directly from within here as well. Moving down onto the cards themselves, we've got some buttons along the top I'll talk about in a moment. And then down the bottom here, we've got things like our BHA number, depth in and out, date in and out. And then very similar to the ops dashboard, we've then got some information down the bottom, and we've got multiple functions that we can choose depending on what we want. So the components gives us some sort of top level overview of the BHA, bit information, sensors, motor data, etc. We can then choose statistics. We've got heat map, and you can have different things selected for each of your cards. Or up the top in the view, you can go through here and you can select to have everything the same. So there we've got a nice schematic, and we've also got incidents. Now notice here again, if a BHA has an incident associated with it, there will be a red border around it. And again, it can be very quickly and easily filtered just so that it's something that you can find without having to look too hard for it. Up the top here, if we want to edit the BHA, we can select this option, and this will open up this BHA editor modal. For those of you that have been using our engineering dashboard, this is the same as what we put in there a few months ago. We've got a nice schematic. We can grab tools from the inventory or the component catalog, and on any particular component, we can access our properties, and everything is here that we need. So this is just quite nice way of visualizing and entering our data. We can access our slide sheets from here now. So slide sheets historically were available underneath the well views, but the reality is that a slide sheet is only created when you create the BHA. So it made a lot of sense for us to move the slide sheets under here now. because effectively without a BHA, there's no slide sheet. So you can access your slide sheet from here. This has been completely rewritten as well, and you can export your Excel and PDF directly from here. Images, you can associate images with each BHA. We've got a really nice drag and drop modal now, so just pull in your images and they will upload. You can also search for them and navigate and select them directly. The run data will allow you to access all the really the details of the BHA in terms of the reason pulled out of hole, incidents, comments. We've got MWD data, rental data, non-mag spacing, pressure drop, probe configuration, and motor stall information, all available from within this option as well. We can also print off Excel and PDF reports. So again, slide sheets, BHAs, motor performance reports. And the last thing to mention here would be this little alerts option that we've got here. So this relates to our object validation. If you have object validation turned on, it will highlight any of the component properties that you have specified are important and that have not got any details entered for. So another quick way of finding out where you've got important data that might be missing. So the next thing that I would like to talk about would be our data config. So the data config is accessible via the main menu at the top and data acquisition, or certainly historically, this is where you would find it. Now, the data config historically is where we controlled our WITS data. So whether it was WITS coming from the field, whether it was WITS ML data, this is where we could start, stop, upload, download, reprocess everything. And it was a table, and it had a line in the table for every well. Well, what we've done now is we've completely removed that from here, and we've now got the data config associated with each well individually, which makes it a lot easier to manage. It's also quite important because we've added additional functionality in there that I'll explain now before I go in and look at it. So I want to explain that by looking at the data config defaults option, which is again available under data acquisition. So this is completely new. And basically what this does is it allows us to choose where we want to take the source of our data from. So up until a few months ago, everything that you have would have come from WellSeeker, or it would have come from WITS ML data source. Those were the two options. We've now added additional options in here that allow you, if required, to grab some of the data from different sources. So our EDR source up here, for example, we can choose WITS ML, Vantage Data Link, NOV well data. We can choose our EDR units. Daily reports, for example, we can take those from WellSeeker. We can automatically pull them from the EDR data that would generate. If you have Peloton WellView integration, we can grab them from there or from WellEase as well. Costs, exactly the same. Slide sheets. Formations, we can pull them straight from StarSteer if you have that integration. And that's the same as the target lines as well. Surveys, we can pull those from the survey correction provider, WITS ML, NOV well data, WellSeeker. And well plans, these can be also pulled in via our data bridge. So those would be emailed in and pulled in. So this is where you can set your defaults for any new well that is created. But if I come back to my dashboard, up in the dashboards here, we can access the data config either from these three little buttons here, or we can access it in the operations tab at the bottom of each of our cards. So if I click on this now, this is now the data config for this specific well. And again, all the EDR, start, stop, upload, etc. functionality you're used to seeing is available in here, plus more. So for example, if my EDR data source is, let's just say NOV well data, as a default, we will then have a section here detailing the well data information, and we will have direct access to the well data info from here. And this is based on us putting in credentials for this in our integration section. Now, what happens behind this is that if we make a well active, once it becomes active, it will look at where is my data sources, what are those, and it will start searching those data sources using the API number. When it finds a match, it will then go, okay, I found a match, we're going to link it in here, and we're going to start to pull that data automatically down. So my WITS data will start automatically. If we skid the rig and we stop receiving WITS data, it will stop. Skid the rig back, we start receiving data, it will start again. If, for example, we've got surveys selected and we select survey correction provider, again, we're now going to have a section for the survey correction. As soon as the well's made active, we're then going to search all of the survey correction providers that we've got access to. We're going to match the API number or the well name. Once that's been matched, we will start automatically pulling those surveys in. And that's the same for these data sources. So this can be, it can all come from WellSeeker, or it can come from multiple different sources, depending on what your source of truth is. And we've tried as best we can to automate the whole process. So really, turning this to active is what would kick everything in. So this is a really powerful additional integration that we have, or that we've added in here now. The next thing I would like to talk about would be our offset comparison. So the offset comparison is available underneath the well view, and we dial in on a particular well. And this is a new dashboard that we have. So in here, you can see available charts. So I can turn on as many of these as I want. I can grab them, I can move them about, I can change the sizes. For the purposes of this, I'm just going to look at a few of them individually at a time. And the first thing to point out is our offset selector. So the offset selector is a little bit different from the one you're used to when we're selecting offset wells. We've tried to make this easy to grab the data that you need without having to go down a big database tree. So for example, you can one click grabs all the wells on your pad, grabs the last 5 wells drilled on this rig, the last 10 wells. We can look at all the wells within a given radius. We can also do searches down here to filter for BHA types, well statuses, hole sizes, and that then just allows us to filter this and select the relevant wells that we need. We can see we've dialed in, we've got 7 wells. So our traces chart allows us to sort of look at our traces and compare them. We've got some drop-down options in here. So we've got lots of different curves that we can put on here. So we can set this up whatever way that you want. If you've got live data coming in for the reference well, you can select that and you will see your live WITS data coming in overlaid against the other WITS data for the offset wells. We can show slide intervals, annotations, etc. If I scroll right down to the bottom here, we can also actually dial in exactly on the area in question that we want to look at to get a little bit more details regarding whatever it is that we're trying to compare. Depth versus days, so just the standard depth versus days plot. We can remove all flat time if we want. We can also start our times at start our depths at 0 just to bring everything in line if we wish. ROPs, so our this is the ROPs for each of our offsets that we have, and we can group these by BHA. We can also group them by well, and we've got the same for distances, slide and rotate, hours. We've got runs, tripping speed, cost per well, heat map. So the heat map, we can choose X and Y, what we want on those axes. We've also got our rotary trends in here. So this would be your, your rotary trends for all of the offset wells. So we can see the different parameters that we have seen from our slide sheets that are, tending to show us building and turning to the right, dropping and turning to the left, etc. And we can hover in or dial in on certain data within here, and that then gives us our minimum, maximum, and average values. If I come back to the traces option, once we've dialed in on the wells that we want to look at, we've got lots of filters in here that allow us to then filter this data so that we can take a look at, the relevant information for us. Now that could be, we really want to just look at the 12¼ inch hole size, or we could look at specific BHAs. And you can see that you'll have this little orange dot up the top that will show us how many filters we have applied, and we can very quickly and easily just uncheck those to reset everything. And depending on what we've got selected, some of these options will allow us to export the data to an Excel chart. Okay, the next thing that I would like to look at would be the parameters roadmap. So we've always had a parameters roadmap, but this again has had a sort of complete rewrite. Again, what we've done is we've pulled the offsets that we created for the offset comparison, and we're now utilizing the same functionality within here to allow us to quickly and easily choose our offset wells. And the big thing that we've really done in here is we have added some new methods of how we effectively bucket the data that we are then comparing to give us this parameters roadmap. So before we had measured depth, now we've got formation, hole size, formation and hole size. And we've also got certain limits in here that we can apply to these outputs. Once the calculation has been run, you can export this to be able to pull it into the auto driller on the rig. And because of the new method options we've got in here for formation and hole size, we've also made life easy and given us some shortcuts to the formations for a particular well and the casings, because this gives us the hole sizes. So if you have to check anything or make some small adjustments, you can quickly and easily do that directly from here without having to navigate to lots of different places. We've also done that within the offset selector for this particular part, where you can also access the casings and the formation data for each of your offsets. Again, just allows you to get to the data that you need without having to navigate to lots of different places to find it. So just try and make life a little bit easier for you. The last thing I want to talk about directly within Vantage itself before I move on to the PowerPoint would be the well details page. Now, the well details page, when you dial in on a well, is the sort of landing page, and that's directly underneath the well views. Now, the well details page historically was a dashboard that gave the user the ability to select whatever they wanted to put on here, move it about, and position it whatever way they wanted. Based on some feedback that we got from quite a few of our clients, we made a bit of a change on here so that this is a little bit more fixed in terms of the structure, but it is a very data-dense page. So there's a lot of information on here that is very useful. So, for example, up the top, we've got well details, well name, distance to TD. So some of this information is available within the dashboard, some of it's not. So we've pulled it all together here. So distance to TD, what BHA that we've currently got in the hole, temperature on location or weather on location. We've got our well schematic here, so we'll be able to see casings, formations, cement information. Down the center here, we've got some information relating to API, rig, state, county status. These options can actually be adjusted here. So if you need to change the well status, if the rig's not correct, if the API needs to be adjusted, these can all be adjusted from here, which is quite useful without having to go back to the dashboards. We've got some references, grid north, elevations, surface locations, the latest daily report information, your look ahead and your summary, daily costs, mud data, survey program, magnetic data, and some drilling statistics. Across on the top right-hand side, we have got our depth versus days. We can also then move across to look at the activity for the particular well. We've got our cost per day, the latest survey. So this will give you the last 10 surveys, and it will update every time a new survey is added. And we've got some tortuosity information in here as well. And then down the bottom right-hand side, we have got our BHA stats. So again, for each of our BHAs, we've got some information to hand. And of course, all of this information is available in different places within the well view section, but this is just one place to give you, most of the things that you'll need. And the time log in here is effectively just your daily reports. So again, you can take a quick look at that. You can navigate left and right here, depending on the dates that you're looking for, just to have a quick look and dial in on that. Notice that the daily report information within here will adjust, so you can see the look ahead, the summary, the costs, etc., depending on the different days on the options that you've got selected. Okay, so I would like to now move back to our PowerPoint. So let me, Okay. So the next thing I would like to mention would be our integration that we've got with PV Fluids. So effectively, for this integration to work, you would enter the PV fluid details in the integrations page. You enter the power section stator vendor as PV Fluids as part of your normal BHA sort of entry process. Vantage will then retrieve the performance curves for the power section being run, and we then use these performance curves combined with the real-time data from MWD and the EDR systems to produce a temperature-adjusted operating envelope. Now here you can see this envelope here, and this is available in our operations dashboard. We then use the data that's coming in to mark within here the actual motor performance, and it's continually being updated and added. And in this case, you can see we've got the red cross here. Now, it's clear at this point that in this particular example, we are sitting out with the operating envelope. So this gives you a clear visual representation of where you are based on what is being run and what you're actually doing in the field. So this effectively allows us to continually compare against the manufacturer specifications, which is going to help to maximize your performance, improve your efficiency, help to reduce failures, and it eliminates guesswork. Instead of looking at, your motor handbook and then trying to see what you're doing and trying to get all these things to marry up together in your mind, it's something that is a very visual thing that's in front of you to help you, as part of your daily drilling process. So some quick fire things that we've done within Vantage. So within the surveys page, we have added a remove projections button. Now, removing projections was always pretty easy, but you did have to open the grid, select the projections, and then manually remove them. This came about from some feedback from some clients. It's just a single click. It's not the biggest thing, but it is a very quick, just make life a little bit easier, less keystrokes in order to get these projections removed. You will notice that we are continuing to update and change our user interface across the platform. So we are trying to bring everything in line with the new things that have been added in. So, for example, the import the EDM files dialog. This has been rewritten. The functionality in here hasn't changed. It's the same, but we just got this really nice sort of drag and drop in here, and the rest of the styling and the buttons are all in line with everything else. Same with things like the AC dashboard, where we've put a ribbon along the top just to bring it in line with with everything else that we do. This is something that we're going to continue to do over the course of the next 3 months, and probably by the end of it, we should have got through everything by that point. Within our operations dashboard, we've added 2 new cards. So we've added the well schematics card, which you'll have seen earlier on, and we've also added the well details card. The well details card gives us, our surface location, elevations, etc. So just another quick reference point without having to navigate to other places within the software. Within our alerts system, we have now, well, it's not quite there. It's in place, and I would say probably within the course of the next week, this will be fully functional and ready to go. I wanted to mention it now because we are so close to it, but we've added in the ability to set up SMS alerts. So historically, email alerts and the dashboard where your cards will highlight in red if there's a problem. Now you will be able to set this up, and it will be able to come directly to your phone if any of your specified alerts are breached. The last thing I want to mention before we go on to any questions that we have would be some things we've done in WellSeeker X. So we have continued to do little bits and pieces within WellSeeker. Last quarter, we talked about our automated backups and how we had updated those. We were taking them more frequently and storing more of them. We've now added a shortcut to get to them, so you don't have to navigate, manually to these. You can just click on this option now, and it will just take you directly to those backups. So that's a very, very useful feature in itself, but this just makes life a lot easier to find those quickly and easily. We added a ribbon menu to our motor yield dialog, so you can now print this off in Excel. We've added that functionality in there. Within our drill string editor, at the far right-hand side, we've added two new columns now for bending strength ratio. So you've got a BSR top and a BSR bottom. And effectively, this is going to help to identify connections that are susceptible to excessive bending stress. In those scenarios, if they are being flagged in red, that's something you may want to take a look at. And the idea behind this is that it will allow you to help reduce the risk of fatigue damage and subsequent twist off. So this could help you catch a problem before you put your BHA in the hole. This has also been implemented within Vantage as well. The last thing to mention here is we have also added our straight line projection option into the chart properties for WellSeeker for the plots. This is something that we already have in Vantage, but it's now been added within WellSeeker as well. The only thing to mention about this is, unlike the normal projections, this will not add anything into the survey grid. This will literally just show up on your plot. It's a 500 foot or meters equivalent projection. You will be able to navigate up and down using your up and down arrows to see how far away you are, up, down, left, right. It's just a one-click option for you. Be very, very useful for your field engineers as the well's being drilled. And that is everything that that I have for this quarter. Do we have any questions at all? So I've come on here. It doesn't look like we've got any questions at the moment. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But yeah, if you've got any questions, I've got a couple of minutes that are available to answer them. Of course, for those of you that have worked with us for long enough, or for those of you that are new, if you have any questions or anything at all, feel free to send them through. We will get back to you as quickly as we can on them. If there's anything coming in. Okay, so we do have one. Is it scheduled a plan to add other vendor manufacturers to the motor performance new module? Well, this is very new at the moment, Horatio. As it stands at the moment, I honestly don't know. I mean, we are always open to working, integrating with people. So as it stands, the answer to that is I'm not 100% sure. I don't believe that there's anything else lined up, but it's not to say that that we wouldn't do something like that in the future. Okay, Octave. So the NOV. So basically, if you have NOV access to NOV within our integrations page. So the integrations page is available from the burger menu, and within the integrations page there is the option to, if I quickly this. So burger menu at the top. Down here we've got integrations, and then within the integrations we've got all of our integration partners. If you're looking at the NOV well data for your EDR, you've got an option to view the details in there, and there are user credentials that you would enter. Once those have been entered, as long as they're valid and we've had a check back, there will be a green option up the top there, which shows as effectively connected. If this is connected and it's working within the dashboard for any of the wells in question, if you were to come to the data config, you can change your EDR source up here to your NOV well data. And again, this is the same with your WITSML. The difference is with the WITSML, you enter the WITSML server details from the burger menu, and then you could link the well either automatically via your API, or if there's any reason that it's not linking automatically, you can click on here and you will see the different options that are available to you. Perfect. Well, that has taken us right up to past. let me just put this last slide on. So yeah, thanks again for joining. And as I mentioned before, the recording is going to be available. It might be available later on today, tomorrow, at the latest. If you have any feedback on any of the features that we have, or any features that you think would be useful to add, please, go to our website. There is a feedback page. We cannot promise that we will add everything, but we can promise that we will look at what you send in and we will get back to you one way or another. Yeah. And yeah, again, if thanks for joining. Make sure to register for the next quarterly webinar. And if you need anything else, you know where we are. Just reach out and contact us. Thank you very much.